In the newspaper article, the judge was quoted as saying, had the victim been more adamant, this could have gone another way. Hi, my name is Melissa. I am 45 years old and I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. The home that I grew up in was very unpredictable, scary. I just always had the feeling like shit could go down at any time. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. I have 2 younger sisters. We're all 2 years apart. And my father was someone who carried a lot of anger and fear and hatred in his heart. And he was an alcoholic and a rageaholic. And I think he's someone who's not very happy with the way his life turned out. And I think he resented really just being there and even having us girls. But yeah, he was like a regular drinker. I remember one time in the morning, I saw him pouring booze into his coffee. And I said, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he goes, "That's Grandpa's back medicine." So that just kind of shows you like how much, how much he was committed to drinking, I guess. But the first time I really remember my dad getting violent with me, I was about 8 years old. I had gotten in trouble at school for something, and he told me to go upstairs to my bedroom, lay face down on the bed, and he took his belt off and he whipped me. And my mom stood there and watched. And what I learned in that moment was, your body is not your own. You are not your own person. And you have to just lay there, shut up, and take it. And you're not protected. And no one, my mom was sitting there just, watching it all go down, like, well, I mean, and that showed me in that moment, like, I guess I really am alone. And I can't trust my parents. I don't trust my parents. And my sisters, like, we all were, physically abused at some point. He was very emotionally abusive, very mentally abusive, would tease us to the point of tears. He would make fun of us, mock us, bully us. And it just felt like I felt like I was a hostage in my own home as a kid. And whenever my dad would come home from work, when we would hear his car pull up, all 3 of us would just scatter. We would just run to our rooms because we were afraid. We didn't know what we were going to get. Probably it was going to be bad. Probably he was going to be angry. Probably he was going to be drunk. And that was our life. And I remember whenever, we would go to my grandmother's house, my mom's parents, that was like my safe haven. Like, she took care of us, she cooked us regular meals. Like, it was safety. It was like we had a routine. And yeah, that was just my safe haven. And but back at home, like, it was just so much anger and so much fear, so much unpredictability. And when I started to get a little older, like, I was 12, and I was in the 6th grade, I think. An 18-year-old boy, so an adult male, molested me at the church that we went to. And my dad found out about it and, like, just called me a slut and just shamed me and told me about the shame I was bringing on my family, and just basically stopped talking to me. And I felt like so alone, and his shame became my shame. And as a teenager, as a young teenager, I started school a year early. So I was a year younger than almost all my classmates. So I started 7th grade when I was 12, and I turned 13 in September. So there was like definitely a maturity gap, like an age gap, emotional development gap. And but I started to experiment with boys pretty young, 13, 14. And it was my way of trying to like claim some kind of power, some kind of agency over my life. Definitely, a way of rebelling, and also a way of like getting some kind of like physical affection, or, some kind of like validation, some kind of attention that I wasn't getting at home. And, and I was bullied a lot when I was younger. You just go through like awkward, puberty stages. And I also and I did not know how to handle that well because I was younger than everybody else. And in the 9th grade I was in junior high, so 7th, 8th, 9th grade, last year of junior high. My biology teacher, he, I think, clocked me from a mile away in the dark, probably. Like, he saw that I was like a vulnerable kid. I was bullied. I was like messing around with boys. I had like an unstable home life for sure. And he clocked that, like I said, a mile away, and he started to groom me. He started to like slip me answers to tests. So then immediately we had a secret. Like, here's a secret that you can't tell anybody, but I'm actually giving you the answer to this whole exam. And that went on for like the whole year. And he also like started giving me like presents, or like bringing me like, like food, and like gifts, and like money and CDs and stuff like that. And he had keys to everywhere in the school, so he would like open my locker, like give me whatever and close it, and nobody would know. And I was so excited to get attention from an adult, any adult. I think especially an adult male, just because of everything with my father, but it felt good to just get attention and feel like somebody gave a shit. And somebody gave a shit about my well-being, and like, just, I don't know, it like filled like a hole that had been there for as long as I can remember. And I thought of him as a safe person. I thought of him as somebody who could, was like looking out for me, trying to take care of me. He was very physically affectionate with me, very publicly affectionate with me, where to the point where other kids noticed, and for sure other teachers noticed. But nobody kind of said anything because he was just kind of this like gregarious, kind of popular guy that, everybody loved. And so it just felt good to have somebody that cared. And then the last day of the school year, everybody's like outside on the grounds, like waiting to get their mom to come pick them up or whatever, waiting for their ride. And I think I thought I left something in my locker, so I went back to my locker, and he was there waiting for me. And that's when he kissed me full on the mouth for the first time. And I remember how that felt. It felt, like I said, exhilarating, because it was like a new feeling. I had just come into puberty. Like somebody's taking an interest in me, but it's an adult kind of interest. And it felt like, oh, this is a secret that I have. And it felt like, I don't know, it just felt exciting. It felt exhilarating, but it also felt like, oh, like this is like uncharted territory for me, and I don't totally know how to deal with this. But he's a safe person, so I guess it's okay. It was, it was confusing. And but again, he was like the only person in my life who I felt cared about me. And we kept in touch on the phone over the summer. Like, we didn't have like the internet or computers back then. It was like a phone on the wall with a dial. And we kept in touch during that summer. Like, he would call me or I would call him. My parents worked. They were never home during the day. So, I just had free reign to do whatever. And when I was 15, I went to the actual high school. I was in 10th grade. And it was like after I had like kind of, graduated to high school, that he invited me over to his home because his kids were all in college or had graduated. And he had 3 kids. And his wife would like go see the kids at in their college town in Columbus. So she would be gone weekends. And so I went over to his house, and that's where he had sex with me for the first time. And, you think when you're a teenager, like, I don't know, I don't know, you think every fucking thing. And this was a way of me like getting some kind of power in an environment where I felt totally powerless. And there was a lot of like stuff going on in my home, like, a lot of like abuse and stuff. And like my dad's drinking got a lot worse. And I just wasn't being taken care of at home. I don't think I ever really was. And it was, confusing. Like, this person is giving me like parental attention. My abuser was giving me like parental attention, like fatherly attention, fatherly care. Like, he would like cook meals for me and like buy me stuff, like buy me clothes, give me money, buy me jewelry. Like, like it was, I guess it felt good to have that kind of attention, but I was paying for it with my body. I was paying for it by him having sex with me and him exposing me to pornography and him, giving me alcohol and it was like I wanted the attention so badly that but I was paying for it with my body. And once that started to happen, I didn't know how to get out of it. I felt trapped. I felt trapped in my home life. I felt trapped with my abuser. It was like a secret that I couldn't tell anybody. But it felt good, but it didn't. And it was so confusing. I mean, I was 15 years old, and the abuse continued until I was 18. At a point, when I was in 11th grade, I turned 16. I mean, this guy taught me how to drive. He taught me how to drive so I could get a driver's license. Like, that's how, fucked up this whole situation was. And like my parents were, I mean, they said they were oblivious, they said that they didn't know. But later on they told me that they did. But yeah, it was confusing. And at a certain point, when in 11th grade, I was 16, my abuser transferred to my high school so he could be there with me and see me every day, all the time. And at that point, I couldn't get away from him. And there was a part of me where I would like, you know, notice boys in my own grade who I thought were cute, and like I would like see these girls who were like, oh, dating boys their own age, or like going to the prom with like they're steady or whatever. And I'm like, what am I doing? How do I get out of this? I don't know how to get out of this. I'm scared. I can't tell anybody. No one's going to believe me. I can't tell my parents. My dad will for sure kill me. I just had nowhere to go. So it was like, I just had to take it. I just had to like, I mean, I guess I thought I just had to stay. And because again, he was my one safe person. He was the person I went to about everything. I talked to him about everything. And like my problems with my friends, problems with my part-time job, like problems I had in other classes, like the depth of the relationship was so strong. And you know, when I was at, you know, I did graduate, you know, high school, and then I went on to college and I went to college 3 hours away, where he couldn't get to me, or so I thought. And he came up to visit me a couple times while I was in college. And I think he knew that he was like losing his grip on me. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm 18 now. I'm legally an adult. I don't have to like I don't know what I thought, but I thought like, you know, he couldn't control me anymore. Like I could, like in my mind, like break up with him. And never mind that he had been, like I didn't fully get or grasp the level of abuse or trauma that I went through until I was at least 40, like, or at least till I was in my 30s. Like I thought that it was like something that I had chosen because I stayed and I didn't leave. So I thought it was my fault. And I was just fucking buried in that shame. Fucking buried. And I remember this one specific time where like he was having sex with me and he was on top of me, and I remember like looking up at the ceiling and just going someplace else in my mind and thinking, I wish someone knew where I was so they could come find me. I wish someone could come rescue me and pull me out of this fucking hellhole with this disgusting monster. Like I wish someone could find me, could see me. And that feeling stayed with me for so long. And then I stopped, you know, I was in college, right? So I stopped returning his phone calls, and I stopped, but we did have email back then. And so he would email me. And there was a point at which he had made comments about my younger sisters, about how he had seen them. One of my younger sisters, he had seen her in the hallway. And I'm like, I gotta do something. And I didn't know what to do. Again, trapped like a fucking animal. And at a point, somebody had, some anonymous person had like faxed something to our local newspaper, to the Cincinnati Enquirer, saying, you know, this teacher is having a relationship with this student. this former student, and you should do a story on this, or whatever it said. And rather than, the Inquirer then turned it over to the Cincinnati police, and they found me. And I remember being questioned by the Cincinnati police. And I remember one of the cops saying, "Oh, I've heard rumors about you for years." And this is the kicker, is that the cop lived 8 doors down from the guy who abused me. So that floored me. It was like the one organization whose literal job is to serve and protect. This fool was just like, "Oh yeah," like he was real cavalier about it too. And I'm like, what the fuck is even going on here? And I had a couple interviews with the police, and I remember being in this cold ass interview room, just shivering, and it was like a physical response that I couldn't control. And I said, he's contacting me. He has left notes on my car. Like, do not underestimate this man. And they put out a temporary restraining order on him. And at this point, I was like dating a guy my own age. His dad was the superintendent of another school district, and my boyfriend at the time's dad was he went to my school district, the head of my school district, and said, this man has been sexually abusing this girl for years. And I think all they did was like force him into early retirement or something. And then in the meantime, like the district attorney's office, like they were pushing me to like testify and like give them names of witnesses, and like, I don't, like somehow the onus for this whole entire shit show fell on me to, I guess, fix or right the wrong or like whatever it was. But I remember, my second year, that they just fucking hounded me on the phone. And finally, and at this point, I was in fear for my life. I was afraid that if my abuser caught me out and about, that he would do, like, physically harm me or physically harm my sisters. And not to mention my sisters were still in that school district. And so I had to think, I was, thinking about them, like I was worried that they were going to get bullied. I was worried that like I'm away at college, like my parents are going to kill me. Like, it was just all such a mess. And it was just all such a fucking shit show. And I got pressure from, like I said, like law enforcement to testify. There was no guarantee that they could like keep me anonymous. There was no guarantee of like my safety. There was no guarantee of anything. It was basically like, you were the one abused, so it's on you to figure this whole shit out. And finally, I think I had just been through so much with like being interviewed and just all the paces that I went through with law enforcement. And I had gone back and forth with them of like, I'm the victim here. Why can't you protect my anonymity? I was trying to advocate for myself. I was 19 years old at this point, right? But in the same mind, like, I just want this to go away. I just want this to go away. I want to run. I want to run. I want to run away. And finally, I told the district attorney's office, I was like, you guys can't protect me. You can't give me anonymity. There's nothing that you can do for me. My sisters have to go to school in this school district. My mother is a wreck. My dad is a abusive alcoholic. Like, who's looking out for me? Like, no, like nobody is. And so eventually, I think I mean, I, not in these words, but I definitely told the district attorney's office they could kick fucking rocks and they could like figure it out themselves, because I was just assuming 100% of the risk, and it didn't seem like they were doing anything to investigate the abuser, the criminal, at all. So what ended up happening was the guy went to trial. My abuser blamed me and said that I had like led him on in some way, and that I had like instigated it. And I have to laugh because it's just like, it's so like painful. It's so like preposterous. It's so fucking insane that like like I just have to like marvel at like somebody with sickness that deep, you know? I ended up not testifying. He pled no contest, which basically means like, I don't contest the charge. I'm not saying I'm not, I'm not saying I'm guilty, but I'm not contesting the evidence here. And he ended up doing 30 days in jail. The charges ended up being contributing to the delinquency of a minor, which I never been delinquent a day in my life. But that's what they got him on. And they did not force him to register as a sex offender, but they did take away his teaching license. So, as if that's the only way you can access kids is through a teaching license. And in the newspaper article, the judge was quoted as saying, had the victim been more adamant, this could have gone another way. So it's just like I was shamed at every turn. Every law enforcement agency, every government agency that was supposed to step in and do something, besides some of the teachers at my school who I am positive in my bones that they knew. They're supposed to be acting as in loco parentis. They are mandated reporters. So it's teachers, it's school administration, it's cops, it's district attorney, it's judge, it's the media, because in that the title of that article was, the headline of that article was like sex scandal, teacher sex scandal. Like, as if I'm like, just the phrasing of that is disgusting, right? And I remember the local news at that time, they were interviewing, like it was such a shock to everyone because this guy was so beloved that they were interviewing like parents and students and stuff, like, and I remember watching the local news coverage and people saying like, oh, she's lying. Like, I can't believe, like, no way. Like, he's a nice guy. Like, no way did he do, what they're saying he did. And I mean, my parents were just, they were in complete and total denial. And I was away, like I went away to school. I went to school at Ohio University, which was 3 hours away from Cincinnati. And so I was at school. I never went home unless like I had to. So it was like Christmas break, you had to go home, and summer break, which I worked like 40 or 50 hours a week at a job. Like I was never home, was never in the same house as my parents. And as soon as I graduated college, I moved out to Los Angeles. And I remember walking on Venice Beach for the first time and just seeing like the street performers and the stores and the, like the sights and the smells and all the food and stores and, you know, all the craziness that's down there. And I remember thinking, nobody knows who I am. I can be I can do whatever the fuck I want to here. I can start over. Like, this trauma can't touch me. It can't catch me now. Because I'm all the way on the other side. Like, I went as far as I could go without jumping in an ocean. And so I moved out here like 2 weeks before September 11th happened. And, you know, I was doing like little, you know, part-time jobs. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do, like, you know, business, marketing, like entertainment, like all those things. But I was the first in my family to graduate from college. Nobody else in my family had ever gone to college before, like aunts, uncles, like none of that. So like no one could really like school me as far as like choosing a career path or whatever. It's just like, it's every man for himself. You figure it the fuck out. You're on your own. That's what's up. And as soon as I got out here, I think it was like such a release to be out of Cincinnati, be away from all those people, away from all that shame, away from my abuser, who he did 30 days in jail, paid a fine, and he was out. So I actually don't know if he ever abused another child, but like statistically, he probably did, you know? But I moved out here, and I was out here like a year or two before I think I put two and two together, that I was like, I can just drink alcohol whenever I want. I can just do whatever I want whenever I want, as long as I show up to work and like get a paycheck. Like, I could do whatever the fuck. Like, after years of like studying and like just trying to be good, I guess, or trying to show the world that I wasn't like a piece of shit, I guess. I don't know. I fell in with I fell in with some bad motherfuckers, and started doing drugs. I started using crystal meth, started drinking, which turned me into just a whole fucking animal. And I drank every day. I drank every day. And I would get like a bottle of Gatorade, pour half out, fill the rest with vodka, and that was like my meal. I was getting all my vitamins and nutrients, I thought. Made sense to me. And, was snorting speed. And that went on for a couple years, and I think my world pretty soon started to fall apart around me. Like, my car got repoed, I couldn't keep a job. I had gotten fired for like the third time in a row. I was like living in a apartment with like 4 other people. It was a shit show. And finally started to feel like I need to get a job. I need to get my shit together. And I started in therapy in 2008, and still was kind of drinking, and eventually, just started going to therapy every week. Every week was going to therapy. And I started to unpack my trauma, and to witness someone else watching me tell my story let me know how bad it was. Because when you're carrying it by yourself and then you share it with somebody for the first time, like a professional, like a real therapist, somebody who's trained in this, you see like their reaction to it, and that mirrors back to you. it's like very, it almost made me feel worse in a way. And, but I stuck with the therapy. I stuck with it every week. Every week I did not miss. And then I got a job at a studio, at a movie studio, and was like, felt like I was making progress. Like I was like working with a lot of people my age, and you know, was like just very exciting to like, you know, like walk on the lot, and like, you know, have like a real friend group. And it just was, you know, it was like really like what I needed. And you know, started like dating, you know, in a real relationship, and which, you know, didn't last because my nervous system wouldn't let me be with, not even normal, but like kind, considerate, thoughtful, and I didn't know how to like deal with that. But also this first boyfriend, it's like he had never been through any shit like this, so it was like he didn't know how to handle that. God bless him, he didn't know how to handle that shit either. And I just felt like, I'm such a piece of shit that I deserve to be with men who are on that level energetically, vibrationally, whatever. And so that's what I thought I deserved. I thought I was like, you know, like a slut, like, you know, had been through this like, you know, gross sexual thing, had been abused, had done drugs, had like, you know, been in all these like other awful relationships. And that's what I thought I deserved. And I thought, as if I can, so I just focused on like a career. So then it turned into like, instead of like drugs and alcohol, it turned into workaholism. And then I worked at another entertainment company, and I like got to work with a lot of celebrities, and, you know, got like kind of was moving up the ladder. And so I started really like kind of feel myself of like, oh, I'm somebody now, you know, for 100%, like get a load of this. But like that hole was still there. It was fucking howling, you know, like that soul wound. And like, but I was just like, but my outside looks phenomenal. My outside looks great, you know, was still like drinking, but like, that was like, that's the, you know, that was, I guess, like the culture. That's why I thought the entertainment business was like, you work a lot, but you can drink a lot too, because you work a lot. And yeah, and then I got into a really unsafe, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive relationship. And that relationship hit it like, in my internal fuse box, it hit all the switches of like, you know, like sex in the shadows, and like having to keep, you know, everything a secret because he was married, but like said he wanted to be separate, like that whole jam. And he like would, you know, come into my life and out of my life and into my life, but like still keep me, like still breadcrumb me to keep going. And like, it was like he was too cowardly to let me go. He was like, he like selfish. He wanted to be selfish and keep me, but like too cowardly to say like, to like let me go. And that relationship destroyed me, top to bottom. It fucking destroyed me, because it hit all the switch. It like felt like I got all the chemicals from, I got all the like adrenaline and all those like neurochemicals that were like neurotransmitters that were coming in, and all of it like felt so good, because it felt, not because they were good feelings, but because they were familiar feelings. and like it reinforced like I'm a piece of shit. This is what I do. I fucking drink my face off, and I get in these unsafe relationships, and I like am doing like this like morally untoward fucking thing, and it destroyed me, and it destroyed me, and it really like kind of, it brought me to my knees, and I left the job, I left the relationship, but those were the only two, I mean, it was shitty all the way around, but that's what was holding me together, was these shitty circumstances. And so when I left both of those things, it was like I went through like this shock, and I felt like I was like sinking into the earth. Like I felt like I was just like falling into like an endless hole. And I thought, I got nothing to live for. And so I'm gonna drink myself to death. And it turns out that takes a lot longer than you might think. And turns out it takes a lot longer than you might think. And I ended up I was 5150 a couple months before my 40th birthday. And I remember being in that facility thinking, like praying to God, like, God, I won't drink again. I won't, fuck these terrible men again. I won't do drugs again. I won't. But it was like everything that I was like offering up were promises that I had already broken. So it was like I had no more chips to like bargain with God. Like God was like, oh, I've heard this shit before. And I'm like, but if you just get me out of here, if just please get me out of here. And I was released after the 72 hours. I got into an outpatient program. I was sober for almost a year, and then the pandemic happened, and then it was like, well, I mean, the world's ending probably, and just the world. Yeah, I went back to drinking because that's all there was to do. Then I got a great job at a tech company. I was making good money. Like moved into my apartment, got a new car. Like all these from the out, it was like my outsides were looking up again. Like nice job, nice car, nice place. Like all these things. Like I had upgraded my surroundings, but the hole was still there, and coupled with I had been in therapy for 20 years, I've almost 20 years, and I had done everything that they told me to do. Went to therapy religiously every fucking week, took my meds as prescribed. I would journal a lot. I would go outside, I would try to meditate for 2 seconds. Did all the shit that they told me to do. And finally I told my therapist, I'm like, if this is as good as it gets, you could suck my dick, basically. Fuck this. If this is all that if this is all that life has to offer, I'm done. I've been through the ringer so many fucking times. Fuck all this. And so I was really considering suicide. But I thought about my younger sisters. I thought about my younger sisters. And I thought, let me just give it one more fucking try, And so I had been on this mailing list for ayahuasca ceremonies for 5 years. I was on this mailing list. And finally I got the gift of desperation. I've tried everything Let me just go do this thing and see what happens. It might kill me. I don't know. it's scary. I don't know anybody who's ever done this before, but I'm going to go and I'm going to do it. And I was so scared walking into it. And it was like a lot of younger people, like people younger than me. And I'm like, where are the fucking adults running this shit? And like everybody's dressed in white. I was like, this is probably a fucking cult or a Burning Man decomp party. I walked into the wrong classroom or something. It was like a lot of like, you know, hippy dippies and like, you know, people wanted to give me a hug. Like, oh, hey, like, we're so glad you're here, like hugging me and shit. And I'm like, you could fuck off. Like, hug yourself. Like, don't, like, get, what the But I just stuck with it and did my first ceremony and had like I felt like I had been like caved in and like the way out had been like just caved in, you know? And after that first ceremony, it was like one rock had been moved and I could get like the tiniest bit of light coming in. But like I didn't have the bandwidth, I didn't have the like capacity, I didn't have the wherewithal, the anything. I just knew that like after that first ceremony, like something very profound had changed. Something very different. This is something very powerful has just happened. And I can't figure out what it is, but I feel it. And it was, it like tripped me out so bad that like a week later I was on a bar stool. I was like, oh God, like give me a drink because that was rough. And that was a lot. Woo! But I felt a shift. And then a year late, it took me a year to come back, but I came back and like, you know, people will talk about like the different experiences they have with this medicine. And never before did I ever hear the voice of God so clearly as when I was with this medicine. And more rocks got pushed away. And I started to work through like, you know, internally, like the shame I'd been carrying, all this fucking baggage that wasn't even mine to begin with, that had been given to me by my parents, by my abuser, by my community, by people, by boyfriends, by, you know, bosses, by like I had just had assumed all of this shame that was never mine, and working through this, like I think that's what a lot of people get wrong about treating, you know, PTSD or complex post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of child sexual abuse. Something's not broken here. It's broken here. And it's like, yeah, it like your you know, circuitry gets hijacked by the abuse. And yes, there's a lot wrong. There's a lot that gets, you know, hijacked here, but your spirit is broken. Like your soul is murdered. And like, so all the therapy, all the, you know, SSRIs, all the antidepressants in the world are not going to fix that. And it wasn't through working with this plant on a dedicated basis. So so in 2023, I did 4 or 5 ceremonies, and I just kept coming back. I kept coming back because I kept seeing more light, more things got revealed to me, and I got lighter. I got like unburdened, like every time I would go, and like, you know, you're puking in this bucket, you're screaming, you're crying, you're like rolling around on the floor. Like I mean, it's a visceral, physical experience, but like what you are purging is all that shame, all that poison, all that all that damage, all that trauma that you assumed that you took on as a child. And I just kept coming back, and I kept coming back. And and then the more I was sitting in ceremony with a safe community, with a safe coach who's leading it, they call them shamans. I call him my coach because, and I told him this, I said, I call you coach because you don't give me anything. You help me find the greatness in myself. And that's what this medicine has done for me. And so I started to talk more about my experience with being abused as a child, being sexually abused. And the more I spoke about it, the more I was seen, the more I was heard. But also people got to hear parts of their story too. And the shame, like they were able to let go of some of that shame and some of that trauma. And so, so today, I get to sit here and I get to meet people like you who are doing incredible work. And it's a beautiful day outside, and I get to tell my story. And, somebody's going to hear it, and they're going to hear, maybe a part of their story. And they're going to see that healing is so possible. And it's not only possible, it's your birthright to live a happy, healthy, fulfilled life, a divine life. Once I kind of found my own light, and now that I'm in these medicine circles and in these ceremony circles, I see how many people have been abused, and it was important to me to go, I don't know, to like go back to like my younger self, maybe their younger selves, and do something. And it was so weird. Like I was just like, from time to time I would Google my abuser's name, even though he died in 2015. I don't know even know what I was Googling, but I just thought like at some point another person would come forward and say, oh, I was abused by William Sturgiopoulos. I thought somebody, that would happen, but it hasn't, that I know of. But I came into contact with these women who were part of this cohort in Cincinnati who were working to push legislative reform for survivors, to extend the statute of limitations both from a civil standpoint and criminal standpoint, because a lot of us survivors, we don't disclose until later in life. Like I think the average age is like 52. I'm 45, so it's like right in that neighborhood. And I just on a whim I said, how can I help you? And we don't know, I don't know you, and they didn't know me, and like they were brought up in the Catholic Church, so they were dealing with like priests in the area that were abusing children. I said I didn't grow up in the Catholic Church, but I was abused by a teacher in your school district. And they were like, we're actually working on a bill to criminalize grooming. So when these grooming behaviors happen, like mandated reporters can report, they will be taken seriously. And if, and it's all to like set get it on the record that like these grooming behaviors are happening, and the grooming is the precursor to child sexual abuse. They said, we're working on, pushing this bill forward. And I said, well, what can I do to help? And they said, if you want to help, you can write down your story and submit it as proponent testimony for this bill. So that means that, the state Senate will look at it in consideration when they review this bill. So that meant I had to write down every I had to write down my story. I had to write down all the details. Every like humiliation, every violation. And I had to write it. Number one, I had to type it all out. And then I had to send it out into the world. I had to send it out to state senators and senators who sit on the state judiciary committee for them to read. And I called a bunch of, and then, when you're trying to get, senators to pay attention, like you call their offices and like, tell them who you are and like, I don't know. And that was kind of wild. I'm like, I used to live in your state. I'm all the way out in California, but it was just, I don't know. It was kind of a trip to be, to reach out. But I submitted my testimony on July 3rd of last year. And I told my cohort in Cincinnati, when they vote on the bill, when they hear the bill, I want to be there. I need to see this thing all the way through. I need to represent for all the survivors out there. I need to represent for myself. And in December, right after Thanksgiving, they said it's going up in December, the week of, I don't know, right before Christmas. I said, I'm on the next flight out. And something happens. Something happens inside when you have been running from your pain, from your trauma, your whole life. Endless nightmares about this man. Endless nightmares about what he did to me. When you are able to look at that in the face and not blink, you uncover a power in you that you never knew existed. Like a power that you couldn't dream of otherwise. So, as somebody who has done illegal drugs and has done some shady shit, so to walk into like a state capitol, like I think the old me would have felt like paranoid, even though like I'm sober, like I'm not even doing shit, but like to walk into the state capitol, like, and the old me would have been fearful, but something switched in me where I I heard a voice in my head that say, they should be afraid of you. Like to feel that and to be able to just like look at this, like at this, just be able to face your trauma in that way. Something that you've been running from your entire life. After you have an experience like that, there is nothing and no one that will ever scare you again. Not like that. Like, you uncover such a fucking courage. And I can't put it into words because it's so profound. But like, and I'm not saying, you got to go out and like pass a bill tomorrow or whatever, but like whatever that is for you, when you cross that threshold, you're on another level. You are on a different level. You are in a different galaxy. Like your soul expands, your heart expands. You become, I don't want to say bulletproof, but it feels a lot like that. So, and now all I want to do is share my experience, because I fully believe that everybody watching this, anybody watching this, you have that. It's in you. I promise it's there. It's fucking there.
And the bill passed.
So yeah, so I did my, I was hoping I could address the the committee, they had a lot of survivors there who were sharing their story. They were also covering a lot of bills during that time. And so I didn't get to, have like the moment that I had envisioned, but I did chase one senator down the hall afterward. And I had my testimony in my hand, a paper copy, and I said, "Here, read this. I've come a long way to be here." And it passed the Senate at the last week of December of 2024, and it got signed into law January 9th of 2025. So during the LA fires. So in the midst of like me having to evacuate from my place, I get a text message like the governor signed it. And like, yeah, I was like, so humbled, but also like, if I can pass a fucking law, like what else, what else can I do, And you just feel empowered, but you also feel like, dude, I'm walking the walk and talking the talk. Like, I'm getting it just how I fucking live. And the things that I do, the things that I say, the way that I am, it's all the same. It's all the same. And that's so important to me. Like, that's integrity. I had tried everything. And also, like, I had like, just other people's trips, other people's trauma, other people's shame, other people's bullshit, like, just piled onto me. And like, through plant medicine, I was able to purge all of that, maybe not all, but a lot of it, to where I can have, these kinds of conversations with people and share my story and become a more embodied human being. And like, really, I ran from my trauma my whole life. I tried to outrun it every which way. And there's a scene in the movie The Fugitive where Tommy Lee Jones has Harrison Ford kind of cornered, and he says, "It's time to stop running." And that happened. Like, it's time to stop running, Melissa. It's time to face it and like, and overcome it. And I feel like I'm, without all of the trauma, I get to be who I really am, like who God intended me to be, or who the universe intended me to be. And I think there are a lot of people who have been abused. It's like, unfortunately, it's so unbelievably common. And I just want to let people know, like, you are not your trauma. You are not your pain. Like, there's a light inside of you that's dying to come out, and the world needs it. The world needs it. Yeah.